This episode is brought to you by Hims. Hey everybody, welcome to the Squanch, Wisecrack's Rick and Morty podcast. My name is Jared, and I'm joined here by the classic Squanchers. We got Ryan.
Wubba lubba, what is up, everybody?
And in Brooklyn, New York, we got Alec.
Hey.
Back with us. How's it going, gentlemen?
Oh man, it's going great. I feel awful from the weekend. I'm a little hungover, but I'm ready to talk Rick and Morty.
Good.
I was a referee at a celebrity deathmatch green slime cage wrestling party.
Awesome.
And ready to move on with my life.
Damn, Ryan.
Yeah,
I feel
Alec.
like I need to get on your level.
Yeah, Alec.
I smoked
and what did
weed
you
and
do
played
this
Rocket
weekend?
League. I hung out with some friends.
He made
and then
bread.
I made bread, and then unrelated to that, I was like, I just want to smoke some weed and play some Rocket League.
Nice.
Hey, dude, that's a good weekend.
Well, since we're on the subject, we shot 6 episodes of Earthling Cinema on Saturday. So that's all I did on Saturday. But then on Sunday, I finally got my hands on an SNES Classic.
Nice.
Which one?
No, the SNES Classic. It's like a thing that you hook up to your TV, and it's like 20 games from the SNES.
Okay, yeah, I know
so
what you're talking about.
my girlfriend and I are playing Secret of Mana.
Dude,
Old school.
how far are you?
We're close to the end. That's like
Okay.
all I did yesterday. I barely left the apartment.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so today we're breaking down Rick and Morty Season 2, Episode 4, Total Rickall. But before we get into that, there's some Rick and Morty news that we wanted to cover, including some stuff that someone on our Wisecasts channel asked us to talk about in terms of the whole Dan Harmon controversy. But Alec, you mentioned that before we get into the controversy, Alec mentioned that there's something that Dan Harmon said about Season 4 that we should cover first.
Yeah, Dan Harmon said in an interview that one of the things that will change about Season 4 is a more anarchic story structure. So we've talked about this before, but Dan Harmon is a little bit of like a fascist with his story. It's the story egg. Is that what it's called?
Or the story circle,
Yeah.
Hero's Journey, whatever you want to call it.
Well, he has his own version of it. But anyway, it's like, here's what happens beat for beat in every single episode. And they follow it very religiously. But he said he's going to let sort of moments dictate things a little bit more and sort of stretch that format and get away from that format a little bit. So I'm pretty excited because I think when people learn the rules really well and then decide to say fuck the rules, it ends up being pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Can be.
I'm excited for that. Yeah, it can be. It can
Yeah.
also
Yeah, it could be
backfire.
a
It can
shit
also
show.
be really bad.
But
But
Dan Harmon knows him inside and out, so I feel like he can break them.
I don't know. I kind of think no matter how much of a master you are at the rules, whenever you break them, it's always a risk. But I think that the worst thing that could happen to the show in Season 4 is that it becomes stale. So I'm glad that he's trying to do something different.
And I like the whole anarchy part. I like the fact that they're just gonna go all over the place because the through storyline is cool, but it's not like why you like the show. Right.
I have a question kind of for Jared though. So when he talked about he's going to let sort of moments dictate things, isn't that why most Zack Snyder movies suck?
Well,
Okay, so what you're talking-
he
what-
lets shots dictate things.
What you're talking about, when you talk about Zack Snyder and you're saying that moments dictate things, you're saying that it's really just that there are no scenes so much as there are just kind of like
Slow motion
montage,
moments.
slow motion shots that communicate an idea, and it's just very jumpy because the movie has to be 2 hours and 45 minutes and there has to be so much stuff crammed in there. I think what he's probably talking about here is that if they're in the writer's room and they have a funny concept and it's getting people laughing, he's probably going to just let whatever is keeping them laughing, he's going to let that go kind of unedited in a sense, instead of saying, oh no, well, we can't do that because it has to conform to this structure or it has to move at this pace. He's probably just going to be, as you said, like less of a fascist. But I don't know. The Zack Snyder thing seems pretty different to me.
Okay. I mean, we'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right. So now on to the controversy. So like many Americans, I just kind of, when I'm busy, I just kind of read headlines and then say, okay, I'm going to go read that article again and then never get back to it. So I think you guys are more educated as to what is happening than me. So Alec, Ryan, what is happening? I know that Dan Harmon deleted his Twitter because somebody unearthed something. What's happening?
Well, there's some right-wing bloggers, Mike Cernovich and this other dude, who there's controversy about what the narrative is. But basically people think that, all right, after Roseanne got fired for her Valerie Jarrett tweet, then these guys have essentially gone back through the Twitter history, online history of all these kind of left-leaning people in Hollywood And they got James Gunn. They claimed his scalp, got him off of Guardians of the Galaxy over some pedophile jokes he made, and had already addressed 10 years ago. And then so basically then they're like, sweet, we got him, so let's go after Dan Harmon and a whole bunch of other people. And then now here we are. And then Dan Harmon, there was a video of him having sex with the baby doll from a Channel 101 thing. Alec, you probably know more about that because
I haven't seen the video, but when you put it that way, it seems so much. I mean, it's like still pretty grody.
Well, right, and that's kind of inherently the point, I guess. If you were to talk to the right wing people, it's like they're like, all right, even despite the context, he had sex with a baby doll. Like you can write it down on paper, and it's true. So it's like, and they're saying, what's the difference? And so that's kind of.
So you're saying
but hold on. So what it was Channel 101 is where Dan Harmon and lots of other people put out these little shorts and sketches, and it was like a parody of Dexter. Dexter is a serial killer who kills other serial killers, but instead of being a serial killer, he would, I think you were saying this, Ryan, would travel back in time to rub his genitals on like the babies of people who'd grow up to be terrible. So I imagine like Adolf Hitler. So like he was like a pedophile being a pedophile towards like Hitler is what I imagine.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Shortly after he put it up on Channel 101, I don't even think there was a backlash. He's like, this joke doesn't play right. It's a little too gross. I'm going to take it down. And of course, whatever it is, a decade later, it's being dragged up. I think in this case it was 4chan, probably encouraged by Mike Cernovich or that group of people.
Right. So are these people do they actually hate Dan Harmon? Do they actually hate James Gunn? Or are they just trying to say
they're pointing out the double standard?
Okay.
Well, I think with James Gunn, it's that he was very vocal critic of Donald Trump.
Right.
Dan Harmon is also sort of wears his politics on his sleeve. So, yeah, I think they are looking for outspoken people and trying to make a double standard where I don't think there is one.
Why isn't there one?
So with the case of like James Gunn and well, let's just say James Gunn, for instance, there's like a series of jokes. Some of them were about rape, some of them were about pedophilia, but it was essentially the equivalent of like a dead baby joke where the point of it was the shock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, I probably thought those jokes were really funny in high school, and I'm sort of like, oh, they're easy, they're lazy, and I don't really find them funny anymore. But anyway, like James Gunn apologized, and I think there's a difference between saying like, I'm going to say something fucking ridiculous to get a rise out of people, which is what lots of people do, versus what Roseanne did, which was like, oh, hey, here's a black person that I don't like. Have you ever noticed that they look like a monkey?
Well, hold on a minute, because that's, I mean, like she would say, she's like, she said a bunch of times, she's like, look, I thought the bitch was white. Have you seen that video? Where she literally screams at it, and you don't buy that? I mean, basically, you're right now. You're saying you're giving James Gunn the benefit of the doubt and saying, "Look, they were just all jokes. He didn't mean it seriously." And Roseanne, who has said passionately she didn't, she wished she could take it back and thought she was white. I mean, I'm not defending either of them. I'm just saying what the situation is and how both sides are looking at it differently.
Okay, I'll say two things. First is like I think Roseanne knew very full well, and I'm not like. I think in the context. Well, okay. In the context of everything else Roseanne has tweeted, she's not doing herself any other favors. Whereas, like, if James Gunn had a bunch of like weird conspiracy theories on his Twitter that was like pointing to the fact that he was probably a pedophile and then was making jokes about pedophilia, I'd be like, okay, something is probably going on here. But like, I think, yeah, even if Valerie Jarrett was white, and she's essentially saying, oh, I don't like you because you look like a human who looks like a monkey. Like, there's just so much, regardless of what she thinks, there's just so much like racist connotations there meant to like, the point of the joke is like the superiority over someone who looks like a monkey. Whereas
you're saying even if she was white, that would mean that?
I don't know. Like who looks at a white person's like, you look like a monkey, unless there's some weird racist thing going on.
I mean, it was a stupid tweet. Don't get me wrong. But
I mean, as far as Dan Harmon, like, to me, like I don't think there should be literally a statute of limitation when it comes to bad behavior on the internet or questionable behavior on the internet. But people should approach these things with a sense of, of knowledge and self-awareness that, like, look, saying that people shouldn't act as, like, we need to be aware that right now we live in, and we've made videos about this, about how we live in, like, in a panoptic society with the internet in which we all act a certain way. We all don't tweet certain obscene things anymore because we know that people are always watching. And because we know that people are always watching, that people are super critical, we've internalized that, and that's why James Gunn doesn't make rape jokes anymore. That's why Dan Harmon doesn't make rape jokes anymore. Sadly, I would argue it's not because they don't think it's funny, it's because they're afraid of the consequences.
I think it's both, actually, because I mean, I do think that there was a time 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where, yeah, shock was king, and you could have, you know, it was kind of funny to make that. Now it's kind of really lame and trite, and you're like,
well, fine, but
who are you trying to
you
shock?
can make a
Taste
lame,
change.
you can make a lame joke. I mean, that's not that
No,
shouldn't
I
get
get
you
it.
fired from your job or anything.
No, I agree with you.
Things
about
go
the
out of vogue and out of style.
Totally
sure.
agree about the firing thing. I'm just talking about the Vogue style of that kind of joke. Keep going,
Right.
though.
All I'm saying is that by saying that Dan Harmon is an immoral person or a bad person that we should not look up to because he did something obscene on the internet 10 years ago is like blaming people in the Stone Age for not having planes. You know,
dude, you don't have to tell me. I totally agree with that. I mean, everyone just needs to use their brain for 1 minute. Be like, what was the context of this? I mean, that's the hard part. Is who's the arbiter of saying what was in this person's heart and mind? You know, when they did this. But God damn it, I mean, like, you can't take. It's not an apples and oranges thing. You know, it is an apples and oranges thing. Like with a lot of this stuff. Like if someone's, it's got to be more objective. Like whether they were totally being kind of like the pornography thing, you know it when you see it on the Supreme Court. Like, if someone's legitimately being racist, yeah, sure, let's kick them out of their job, or with the mob. But if people are making jokes, and we all know they're jokes, everyone knows the James Gunn thing was a joke. Even the people that are pissed, or so quote unquote. I mean, we got to all take a step to what.
I feel like everyone. So I feel like the James Gunn thing, like everyone except maybe Mike Cernovich is like, oh no, we're on James Gunn's side.
Right, but then think about it. You're Disney. You're literally you're marketing to
they're
children around the world, and then you're like, well, fuck, this pedophile joke guy is the lead of our movie. I mean, and they knew that too. That's the stupidest part.
I mean, to me, it's just don't make jokes. Just get off of fucking Twitter. Just get off of Twitter, because you can't. Even if, look, James Gunn might be a guy who likes rape jokes, and guess what? Liking rape jokes isn't illegal. It's distasteful, but people can. There is a time and a place for tasteless jokes. When you're with close friends.
But that's the thing, is that not everyone's the corporate. The head job at a corporation like Disney. Think about Donald Trump. He can
That's
say
what I'm saying. Like,
anything he
it's
wants
just that
because he's a self-made
Twitter at one
guy.
point was not as much considered as much of a public forum as it is today, because I mean, it's a giant behemoth that everyone checks every day, and it's where people most live their most authentic lives, unfortunately. But people just need to know that now. People aren't going to be making obscene jokes anymore. Twitter is going to basically,
if you have something to lose. That is the key distinction. James Gunn, the only reason it's a big deal, he has something to lose. He has a big job at Disney.
Yeah.
Donald Trump can make a fucking
Everybody has,
joke, and he has nothing to lose because everyone voted him.
Maybe you don't have something to lose
that.
right now, but I recommend everybody don't do anything on Twitter, because maybe you'll decide you want to run for office one day. Maybe one day you want to get like a corporate job. Then maybe you'll have somebody who is your competitor who wants to fuck you over. Yeah, everyone's got something to lose.
Except
the internet is written in
billionaire,
ink.
Unless you're a billionaire.
Well, look,
I have a
even
question.
billionaires find value in their work and don't want to be taken away from it. I'm sure
I'm sure
James Gunn doesn't have problems paying his bills, but he still wants to complete his series. It's probably very dear to him.
Well, because he has something to lose. He has a big job at Disney.
All right, I'm just saying that the amount of money you make isn't the only thing that's being held over these people's heads.
It's a big part of it, though. I mean, like...
Oh, no, it's definitely a big part of it. It definitely hurts much more for somebody who's losing their job who, still needs their job to make money.
Normal people can't get away with saying obscene shit. That's what your point is that, like, if you're just a guy that has a job and you're trying to make bills, don't be saying stuff.
Well, unfortunately, nobody can get away with it, but it hurts much more if you lose, if it's like character assassination and you lose your means to make money.
Exactly.
All right. Well, sorry, go ahead, Alec.
Well, it's not a counterpoint. I don't know what it is, but you're blaming Twitter, and Twitter plays a role. But also, like, what the fuck is the deal with Mel Gibson? Because I remember, was it 10 years ago? He was like, yeah, the Jews cause all the wars. And then he was like blackballed from Hollywood, and now he's making movies again. And like, did he go to like, I like the Jews camp to like learn how to not hate them? Or are people just like, nah, it's been long enough?
That's the ridiculous thing. Everyone's like, well, your statute of limitations.
Well, he has apologized, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
Has
everyone
he?
apologizes when they do this stuff most of the
Yeah,
time.
I mean-
everyone does. So it's like no one usually takes that apology to mean anything. I feel like.
Right.
I
mean,
feel-
I'm a Jew. I don't like anti-Semitism, but I'll see Hacksaw Ridge. He's a good filmmaker. Anyway, all right.
Back to Rick and Morty.
You guys want to talk about this episode, season 2, episode 4, Total Rickall?
Yeah, dude.
All right, let's get into it. All right. Fuck. What do you guys think of this episode? Let's get first impressions. Let's start with Ryan.
Dude, I couldn't believe we hadn't gone over this one because this is probably my second or third favorite episode. And
Oh, cool.
I kind of forgot that we hadn't talked about it, and so yeah, I love the fuck out of it. A+++.
Awesome. Cool. Alec?
B+. I like it. It doesn't really get me going like some other episodes.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I wouldn't call it top shelf, but similar to Ryan, for some reason, like in the middle of season 2, where a lot of episodes I don't really revisit. I think I've only seen this one like 2 or 3 times, which sadly for me is very few when it comes to Rick and Morty. But yeah, this episode was a lot funnier than I remembered it being.
Yeah,
And I appreciated it. And actually, I remember a long time ago, Alec and I were talking about a particular angle for perhaps doing a video on this episode. And some of the ideas we talked about kind of percolated a little bit better that we'll talk about in a second. But before we do that, let's go into a recap. So, a wholesome meal with Jerry's goofy brother Steve is cut short when Rick shoots him in the face, revealing him to be an alien parasite who implanted the memories of Steve into the Smith family's minds. Fearing an infestation that will eventually take over the planet, Rick and fam lower the blast doors and, along with Mr. Poopy Butthole, keep their eyes out for any new zany characters. As the Smith family thinks back to certify the validity of their memories, new characters start joining the fold, including Cousin Vinny, Mr. Beauregard, Photography Raptor, Sleepy Gary, and Frankenstein's monster. But Rick knows there are only supposed to be 6 of them. When the family starts reminiscing faster than Rick can exterminate, the house becomes packed to the brim with zany characters. Frankenstein's monster disarms Rick and ties him to a couch when close family friend Reverse Giraffe starts convincing the mob of characters that Rick is the parasite. So Morty takes Rick to the garage to execute him when he realizes that the parasites are the ones that he only has fond memories of. Remembering horrible memories of everyone in the family, Remembering horrible memories of everyone in the family, Beth, Summer, Rick, and Morty strap up and annihilate all the parasites, while Jerry laments the loss of his best friend/lover, Sleepy Gary. After cleaning house, the Smiths sit down for a well-deserved meal. When Mr. Poopy Butthole joins the table, Beth shoots him thinking there's one last parasite, but she's wrong. Mr. Poopy Butthole bleeds uncontrollably, and the Smiths visit him in the hospital where he sarcastically apologizes to Beth for being a perfect friend. End of episode. All right, guys, before we move on, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Hims. So Hims is a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and sexual wellness for men. So 66% of men lose their hair by age 35. And so those of you who are watching this and are seeing me visually or have seen me in videos, you know that I am probably, or you can probably guess that I'm scared to death of losing my hair because I've always had a lot of hair. I've always grown it pretty long, and the thought of going bald is not one I like to think about. So the great thing about Hims is that Hims can connect you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. So if you want to get prescription strength stuff for ED or other stuff for skincare or hair loss prevention, you don't have to go to a waiting room, no awkward doctor visits. You can save hours just by going to forhims.com. You answer a few quick questions, the doctor will review it and can prescribe it to you. So Hims has sponsored us a couple times now, and they sent me a kit of some of their products, and I've actually been using their shampoo that is supposed to avoid hair loss, which I'm very grateful for, because once again, I'm closing in on 35, guys. I got 5 more years, and if I'm bald by then, well, I mean, if it happens, it happens, but hopefully the guys at Hims can help make sure it doesn't happen. So If you order now, listeners will get a trial month of Hims for just $5 while supplies last. You can go to the website for full details, but this would cost hundreds if you went to a doctor and a pharmacy to get all this prescription-grade stuff. So go to forhims.com/squanch. That's forhims.com/squanch for... Sorry, I'm going to take that again. So go to forhims.com/squanch. That's forhims.com/squanch for your trial month of just $5. And now back to the show. All right, guys, so the first thing to mention here is the title. You guys Total Recall fans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but I haven't. When I was in college, I went through a phase of watching every single Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, but it's very hazy.
You should
Oh,
go
man,
watch
that's
every
awesome.
single Paul Verhoeven movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me and my mom watched Schwarzenegger movies all the time. Him and Jackie Chan were like our go-to when I was a kid. But yeah, so this is another very clever title. I think the last one we talked about, no, it was 2 episodes ago with the Midnight Run title thing. But this one, yeah, they seem to be on a streak in season 2 where the titles are very, not only they references to sci-fi stuff, but they kind of deal with similar either structural things or philosophical questions. But here I think the episode ends with a similar philosophical question that Total Recall ends in with is, can you discern implanted memories from authentic ones? Because this is at the end of Total Recall that you don't know if he actually went on this adventure or you're just experiencing the, quote, adventure vacation that's been implanted in his memory.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what happens in that movie? He goes to a thing.
Goes to Mars.
Right.
He goes to this company that basically implants vacations in your brain so that you can feel rejuvenated and everything, but it's like less costly, and you can choose, you know, like a luxury vacation, or you can choose like an adventure, and you can choose like that you'll get like a heroine or like a whatever, like a damsel in distress. You can specify what you want, and then in the movie, like as he's going into the machine that's going to implant his memories, something goes wrong, he breaks out, and then like the government's after him, and you're forced to question, now did he really break out, or is the breaking out just part of the memory? You guys see the remake?
Oh yeah,
Colin
yeah,
Farrell?
yeah.
No.
Boo. With
I don't even.
Colin
the
Farrell,
Irish
right?
guy.
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
Yeah, boo. All right, so let's move on. So one thing that Alec and I talked about this episode a while ago when we were thinking about making a video about it is sitcom tropes. So it's funny how the first act of this, where they're constantly reminiscing, or even the beginning when we see Jerry's brother, Steve, it's kind of how in sitcoms, especially in the 90s, any character can be woven into the main character's backstory at any time. Especially when in sitcoms where there's like a single set and a studio audience, new characters will always be brought into the house through like, hey, remember Cousin Billy? So they're kind of taking the inciting incident or like premise maker of serialized TV that have guest stars and like casting doubt on its authenticity for like the whole episode here. So
Didn't this famously happen with Happy Days?
I haven't seen Happy Days, but I was actually talking to some of the staff here at the office, and the one that they all knew really well was Full House. So in Full House, there's Gia, who is Stephanie's cigarette-smoking, school-skipping best friend, is just all of a sudden introduced, and it's like her best friend that we'd never heard of before.
Same with Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Growing Pains. He just comes and he's just like the long-lost like stepbrother or something.
Right.
He's just like in it for a whole season.
Right. Or also in Scott Baio plays Pete, an old friend of Jessica's who almost convinces him to ride his motorcycle off the ledge of a parking garage.
I think what you're thinking of, Alec, in Happy Days, what's his name? Robin Williams' character, Morton Mindy, you know? He just shows up and like late in
Wait, Robin Williams is in Happy Days?
He comes in as his character from Morton Mindy, and then that's where that show spun off of, was that episode. Because he was so weird.
All alien to me.
Yeah, so all these flashbacks when they introduce Mr. Beauregard or Cousin Vinny basically just turn into a series of stereotypical grand entrances from early sitcoms and soap operas, which essentially it's a joke.
And 90s Conan.
And 90s Conan, yeah, I was going to bring that up. And like their most stereotypical dramatic functions. So another one is, so there's one of my favorite ones is when Morty, I guess he doesn't have a date to prom, and then Mr. Beauregard comes in and he's all dressed up. So this is common in all sorts of sitcoms, but the one that Joy, who is she helps us with some of our ad support. She said that in Family Matters, there's an episode where Laura's going to go to the prom with some hot stuff guy, but she ends up getting stood up. And then at the last minute, in some epic grand entrance, Urkel decides to take her, and she feels all great and stuff like that. So, I love it when they say, there's a lot of the qualities that we talk about at Rick and Morty are like the existential themes, but then there's ones in which they comment on writing and specifically writing for television, and I love it when they do that. There's also a lot inherent in this. There's also some jokes about like the really cheesy one-liners that they'll say during these grand entrances. So after Mr. Beauregard gets Jerry's head out from the staircase where it's stuck, he's like, "Marmalade is served," and then Frankenstein's monster comes back in and says, "I guess I take back what I said about British cuisine," and then everyone laughs. It's funny how like the Smith family, who only remembers positive memories about this, almost act as like the studio audience. Who like any time that these people come in, whether it's the brother Steve who's giving them all a vacation, they're all just like, "Yay!"
So another one I really like was when Frankenstein's monster says, "I was on the wrong side of the pitchfork on this one."
Yeah.
But then when Rick kills whatever that guy's name, he's like, "I guess I didn't the butler." And then he's like, "Does that one scan?" And then he looks to Ghost in the Jar?
Ghost in the Jar, yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I get it. It's a play on the butler did it."
Yeah, but he still kills him. What are your guys' favorite characters?
Mr. Poopy Butthole.
What about fake characters?
Sleepy Gary, dude.
Oh, yeah, Sleepy Gary's
his whole
too
thing
good.
with Jerry is the funniest thing in this whole episode to me. When Jerry is just like, "We said not in the house." There's so much communicated in that one line.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
just how
you feel like you just like started watching Brokeback Mountain in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, but the fact that it's all implanted just makes it that much funnier. That a parasite would implant those kind of memories.
It also gave me more insight on Jerry because I feel like he just goes with the flow in a way that, God bless his heart.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you guys, so one of my favorite things about this episode is that if you actually think about what's going on in terms of, this has to be the most painful experience ever for these for the Smith family to be killing all these parasites, because if the memories are truly indistinguishable from their real memories, even if they're artificial. So are we supposed to believe that once they kill the parasite, the fake memories go away? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, they don't, because they shrivel up and they go, "Wait, he taught me how to drive and stuff." Like it's all coming back to them, how their whole life has been a lie, basically.
I think the line that encapsulates this perfectly, it's so short. It's actually just one word, but Tinkles, the magical ballerina lamb, Summer's best friend. So Summer's about to kill her, and Tinkle says, "Summer, I've always loved you," and she just goes, "Yup," and just shoots her. It's not even that and that's what I love so much. It's not even that the love was fake. The love is as authentic as any love because the memories are indistinguishable. But she still kills her, and like,
it's gotta be painful.
When
it's got to be
Sleepy
painful.
Gary dies, and Jerry holds him in his arms and says, "Send me to Gary."
He puts the gun to his head. "Send me to Gary. I want to be with Gary." Yeah.
Who was your favorite monster?
I don't know. Some of them are so good. Like, I just loved pausing this episode and doing like the Where's Waldo thing and checking out all the zany characters. I loved like when Morty kills like the wizard baby. And then the giant duck is like, "Oh, wizard baby was a parasite." I love Mrs. Refrigerator.
Them on the roller coaster with them. I love
Hammer-Eye. The samurai is made all of ham.
That's where the '90s Conan line came in.
I didn't watch Conan in the '90s.
I did,
do you get it?
Oh yeah, I mean, because he'd always have like like the masturbating bear, and then it'd be like a giant bear with giant balls that he'd be rubbing.
So he had characters come on stage like that.
Yeah, and sometimes it would be in a succession, like 50 of them, like he's like, "And then here's this guy," and it'd be somewhere, and usually they were like a pun. I wish I could remember one of the more punnier names, but they it'd be like two things mixed together. Yeah, Hammer-Eye would be a perfect one, But yeah, this is total '90s Conan.
Okay, that makes more sense.
My favorite
now.
is Pennsylvester, and
Yeah.
I love the moment whenever he's like, "Hey, Rick, you don't want to kill me?" He's like, "You remember all those good times you had?" He's like, "Oh yeah, you're right, Morty." Kill Pennsylvester.
or even when when Morty's about to kill Rick, he decides not to because he's like, I can't do it in front of Pennsylvester.
Yeah.
As if Pennsylvester is just he's the delicate one.
Right.
Not necessarily my favorite character, but I do like, it's me, Cousin Nicky. I'm walking here. I mean, I'm not. I'm crouching in an elevator shaft, but hey, I'm walking here.
That's my least favorite one.
The whole I'm walking here thing is that
Is that Midnight Cowboy?
That's what I thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
from Midnight Cowboy, and I actually looked it up. Is Dustin Hoffman's character named Nicky? It's not. But
It's just like-
Alec,
it's just
you
like
live
a
in
thing.
Brooklyn. Is
It's
that a
kinda
real thing?
It's become a thing
Because
outside
of
that
Midnight
movie.
Cowboy?
Yeah, no one really remembers the original reference, but people just go, "I'm walking here" when they're walking around across the street. They do it in
It's a
Forrest
stereotype
Gump
of like
too.
how, yeah, it's a stereotype of how people in Brooklyn like interact with cars. Although Dustin Hoffman improv that line because
Yeah.
a car like took a wrong turn and almost actually hit him.
Yeah, so for those of you who haven't seen Midnight Cowboy, there's a scene where Dustin Hoffman is walking with his co-star, who is it?
John Voight.
With John Voight, and they're crossing the street, and a taxi almost hits him. And Dustin Hoffman, which is apparently improvised, he just like slams on the car hood and he goes, "Hey, I'm walking here."
It's
Is
amazing
that even
movie.
improvising at that point, or is that just being pissed off at that car?
That's improvising.
Yeah, I think he's improvising. Yeah.
Okay.
So would you like these memory parasites, man? They really can implant very positive memories in your life. I can see there being almost a pragmatic use for that. I mean, would you kill all of them but one? Would you just assuming that you could keep them from spreading, but
You can't.
why wouldn't you want an amazing family friend in your life?
No, you would, but you can't help them from spreading. That's the thing.
I'm
Right.
sure Rick could figure it out.
Well, if he could, then yes, I agree. I would, especially if you knew it, especially if you had this pet and you had all these memories of him, and you were like, God, but I just know that they're all bullshit. That'd be interesting.
Do you think you could put a gun to a memory parasite's head and make them craft for you the ideal friend or ideal mate or ideal whatever,
Well,
and so I want you to implant these memories into my mind.
Rick could maybe do it. Rick could probably just take that process and do the whole thing himself without the parasite. What are you gonna say, Alec?
Yeah, Dan Harmon in an interview, or whatever it was, he said something like, it doesn't seem like it's canon, but he was sort of hypothesizing off the cuff. But he's like, maybe Mr. Poopy Butthole is another kind of parasite, but not the same exact kind as the other ones.
Oh, I don't like that as much.
Yeah,
I like it more that he's a real person that's been
where
the
he
family
doesn't
friend.
take advantage, but he might fill a certain gap in someone's head and not sort of reproduce. So he's whereas the other ones are malevolent, he's benevolent.
Well, we do see in season 3 that there's another. What was the guy's name? The guy that in the Vindicators episode that Rick thinks is just the
Noob
coolest
Noob.
guy. Noop. So there's a race of Mr. Poopy Buttholes.
But are they
yeah,
the
because
same race, or do they just look similar?
Well, he's like a mutated version of him, right?
Yeah, he's got some weird eye thing going on.
I don't think they're the same race.
How
I
can
think-
they not
I
be?
think
They look the
I think
exact
I remember
same.
you saying the comment that they were kind of similar, but I don't think that they were supposed
I
to.
think Justin Roiland just kind of cycles through weird ideas in his head, and this one is one that comes up oh, this sausage shaped thing with fucked up eyes.
Yeah, there's no real visual indication of poop or poop jokes in Mr. Poopy Butthole, which I always found to be. I don't even know how I feel about that.
I love it.
I think I like it, yeah.
It's great because
'Cause you have to
it's all about his
imagine the
name. It's
poopy
all
ball.
in the name.
It's not like he's got a diaper on.
No.
It's not like he's got toilet paper around him or anything like that. He's just a funny-looking dude with a top hat, and his name is Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Right.
We don't even know if he has a butthole.
Wow.
Yes, exactly. I had a point I wanted to make. Let's, we figure out in this episode that Morty is a chronic masturbator. Remember?
Yeah.
Every
that's
single
never
Around
really-
everywhere in the house.
That's never really revisited. And
Well, we see
Well-
that he's got an insatiable sexual drive with the Gazorpazorp episode
That's
because
true.
he has that that sex doll that he spends all day fucking and then comes downstairs and takes a nice swig of orange juice, and then back at it.
And what's the Morty's mind blowers thing where like it attracts whatever into all these like redheads?
Oh yeah. Rick creates like a magnet or something that basically can attract whatever you program into it or whatever you desire, and Morty turns it on, and like all the hot redheads in town just come to it. But I think we talked about this in the last episode, the Unity episode. Rick also has a thing for redheads because with Unity, he says,
like grandfather, like son.
That's right. Like grandfather, like grandson. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about, Ryan?
Vaguely, remind me.
So this is when he first gets to Unity's planet, and he tells Unity, all right, I want you to fill a stadium full of people that look like my dad and get all the hot redheads to come in and have sex with me while I skydive in.
And they chant dad or something.
Or the dads chant, go son, go
yeah,
son.
That's right.
So, like grandfather, like grandson.
Weird.
Wow. Is there also something about Morty having a foot fetish that I feel like someone's emailed us about?
What was that in?
Yeah, it sounds familiar, but...
I don't know. Whoever
Is
that
Summer
was,
not a
back.
redhead?
She is.
She is.
She is.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Oh, man. Maybe there's something there.
Is it like Rick maybe secretly wants to fuck his granddaughter?
No, I wasn't going to go there, man. You got to be careful with those jokes, man.
Yeah, dude.
If you ever want to run for office, you're fucked.
I'm
just asking
that's
questions.
set in stone now.
Yeah.
You better
that's set in
apologize
stone,
on
man.
this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Some funny stuff that happens in this episode. I love the when Rick cycles through those catchphrases like grass tastes bad and AIDS.
The best part though is he's playing poker with Snowball in one of those scenes, and there's just like booze and money everywhere.
Yeah.
And he's not wearing the helmet, so it was like pre that one episode. So, like, can Snowball actually play poker, or is Rick so fucked up that he thinks a dog can play poker?
Well, wait,
I like the second one.
I think he probably was. It was post that episode. He just went to the dog planet to go play poker with the smart ones.
Okay, but he has no helmet.
Well, they fixed that on Dog Planet, maybe.
All right, I'll take it.
I feel like we didn't talk about Sleepy Gary enough.
Okay, let's talk more about him. I love him.
Was it weird to you that like Jerry's like, hey, not only do I remember Beth since high school, but I remember her husband and my best friend, but doesn't he still have memories of him being her husband?
I guess not.
I guess not.
Or like
Wait.
he's so sick. Well, but Beth falls a whore too.
Can you say that again? Does Jerry not have memories of?
Yeah, Jerry should still have his memories of Beth being his wife, but he also has the new implanted memories of Sleepy Gary being Beth's husband. So does it just like overwrite the old memories?
Wait, Sleepy Gary's married to Beth?
That's
Yeah.
Because Sleepy Gary, even when Rick is about to shoot Summer, when he thinks that she's fake, Sleepy Gary goes, "No, that's my daughter, Rick."
Oh man, I missed
And
this whole part.
Jerry says something when he first shows up of like, you're just a girl I met in high school, and you found this like wonderful guy, and you let me be your friend, and it's so cool. It's amazing.
Yeah. I just love that it's Sleepy Gary. Not only does he have the nightcap on, but he also talks like really softly. Like he says, "Let me tell you something about Frankenstein. He's really Frankenstein's monster." It's just so soothing, like he's telling you a lullaby.
See, I must have been too high when I watched this because I always thought that Jerry was like having an affair with Sleepy Gary.
Well, he is as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess he thinks that he's just Beth's old friend and that he's just in the house because he's Sleepy Gary's best friend. And I love it how he seduces him by saying, they're filming a new Star Wars movie around here. Maybe we'll see Chewbacca.
Yeah.
I'd like that. And then they start making out.
On like a catamaran.
And yeah, there is just something so familiar and so, like, they play it so straight. With like, oh, what are we doing? It's just so, yeah, it gets you.
That my one of my favorite lines is where Jerry's talking to Sleepy Gary. He says, "But if those memories can't be trusted, Sleepy Gary, how do I know I'm real?"
Yeah. Fucking A.
There's a very specific joke that reminds me of very specific people I know in my life. Did you guys remember the 3DS scam? It's not really a scam. The 3DS hustle.
Oh, was that referencing something that happened in real life?
Well, okay, so Rick is like, oh man, like 3DSs are on sale for $150 and you get $50 gift card, means like 100 and you can sell them on eBay for $200. I know people that like they have full-time jobs and they make a lot of money, but finding weird couponing scams like this is like all they do. And they don't even like, when all is said and done, like they make nothing in comparison to their salary, but it like brings them so much joy that they feel like they just cheated the system by, getting a 3DS on sale and combining it with like a weird cashback thing and then selling it for more money.
It's like Adam Sandler in Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, with the healthy choice, or is it healthy choice?
I think so.
Yeah, the
airplane miles.
Right.
I had a question about, this might be bullshit, but I remember someone in college that took some philosophy class telling me like, yeah, like my professor was telling me that like there's no way that you can prove that the universe didn't like just start this moment, and that everything that you remember and all history is just pre-recorded. But it was bullshit. Like the professor even was saying that he thought it was bullshit, but you can't prove it basically.
Well,
what do y'all
like Dark City?
Have you seen Dark
City?
To say about that?
This is kind of the tenet of Pastafarianism. So the flying spaghetti monster created the world in 1950, and all the things we remember from before then / history are all implanted by his noodly appendage. Yeah, I think you can technically not prove that, but what is it? It's non-falsifiable, which is probably not a good sign of a good thing. Like you can never. It's a claim that you could never prove wrong, so we should probably just move on.
Gotcha.
Last thing I want to bring up before we go into the mailbag. One of my favorite scenes here is Beth drunk in bed in the morning and giving Summer a black eye on picture day.
Yeah.
That was dark. And I love how she was just like blackout drunk and it was probably like 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I believe Alec has some questions for the mailbag, so let's dive in.
I do. All right. Here is an email from Britann. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Sorry. Hold on. Hey guys, love the podcast. Recently, you've been talking about how social media must make the popularity of Recently, you've been talking about how social media must make the popularity contest of school worse. While I don't totally disagree, I want to say I think you guys are thinking about it a tiny bit wrong. I grew up at a weird point where social media wasn't actually really big until I was about 14 years old. This person's currently 21. You guys think of it as a vacuum where there's just one school and you can only interact with people from your school on Instagram. The reality is there are hundreds of schools and the popular kids usually follow that vacuum model and only interact with each other, but nerds contact each other with the same interest and personalities online. This allows outcasts to interact regardless of geography, and the losers, quote unquote, to make friends and gain self-confidence they would not be able to otherwise. This does, however, in some cases lead to a whole different problem of nerds harassing creators, but it doesn't create a larger sense of loneliness as you suggest that it does.
Yeah, this is a good point. I mean, so basically saying that, yeah, when I was a kid, more or less, we had like AOL Instant Messenger and stuff, but more or less you were limited to having social interactions with the people that went to your school. But these days, if, you have no friends in your regular school, but you're really into fucking bronies or something like that, then obviously, that's how bronies exist, is because the internet has allowed for kind of the weirder 1% of people in schools to come together and find a community online. So yeah, I get it. Yeah,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, next email is from Charles. Charles asking, why is Jerry the worst? He hears this repeatedly from us and other fans and podcasts, but he never understood why. Jerry's sort of a loser, but sorry, one second. Jerry's sort of a loser, but that's not the worst crime possible. Charles finds him admirable because no matter how much the world treats him like shit, but unlike Rick, who's the sort of hedonist, Jerry never gives up. What he lacks is not ability, but self-confidence. However, is this any surprise, given that literally everyone shits on him constantly? Yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, there's certainly a tragedy to Jerry's lameness because he's just like the guy who none of his abilities are useful in the system he grew up in. So, he's just kind of like the stereotypical like superfluous man who just, he's just can't really succeed in the system, doesn't have the balls, doesn't have the cunning, doesn't have the cutthroat ability, doesn't have the proactiveness. So it's easy to make fun of him.
But I also think there's something about Jerry. I was trying to say this before, but like he just fucking goes with it. Like the Titanic thing, he's just like, it's bullshit, but like he doesn't care. Or like if a man tries to seduce him, like, yeah, whatever, even though that was a fake memory. Yeah, he just like does not give a shit. I mean, he does, but it's like a weird kind of, it's not actually stoicism, but it's kind of like, I can't control anything, so I might as well just, take refuge in like Jerry Burry or something like that.
He's like the dude, just goes with the flow, except
Yeah.
except doesn't do as much drugs and wasn't a roadie for Metallica.
He's remarkably more self-aware than you would think for being so stupid, Like in this episode we were just talking about when his head's in the fucking staircase and he's just like, they're like, we got to call the police, the fire department. He's like, they won't come here anymore. He's like, he knows that he is weak and a burden on to the people around him.
But what can he do? I mean, that's
Exactly.
who he is.
Doesn't Beth call him a parasite in this episode?
He
which I
does.
thought,
Well,
yeah.
He's like, kill me, I want to be with Gary, I'm a parasite. And she's like, yes, but you're real.
Yeah, it sort of reminded me of was with the episode with the theme park from season 3.
Oh, the Vindicators episode.
Is that the
Well, if you're
where Rick calls him? He says he preys on the weak, just like that creature.
Oh, the Whirly Durly conspiracy.
Yeah, the whirly durly. I was thinking the roller coaster.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's like an interesting. Yeah, I guess I maybe thought that was the first time that came up in the whirly durly conspiracy, but it sort of is planted a little bit earlier here.
All right, what's next?
All right, an email from Vern. I think Vern sent us other emails, so what's up, Vern? Hey, Squanchers. Just wanted to point out something I think you all might have missed when covering the Unity episode, specifically with Rick's suicide scene. You all postulated that this disdain with his life and experiences has to do with the fact that he knows and can do everything, and how he fully grasped how meaningless everything is. While this definitely factors into his suicide attempt, I think it's important to note that what drives him to this point is his breakup with Unity. Unlike Morty, Rick sucks at dealing with emotions, probably because he sees them as irrational and consequently a weakness. And then when made to deal with this, he cannot handle the turmoil of Unity's split with him. I think it's also worth noting that Rick's comforting of the little monster he kills while testing the suicide machine is the most sympathetic and caring we have ever seen Rick. Just wanted to point this out. Any thoughts?
So, yeah, I mean, I think I touched on this a little bit when I said that I think what one of the big things that Rick wrestles with when he does the suicide attempt is that he realizes not only that it sucks that Unity broke up with him, but the reason why she broke up with him, which is probably, I think we can infer the same reason she broke up with him the first time, and that is that he brings out the worst in people. He makes Unity dysfunctional in the same way that he makes Beth dysfunctional. So he kind of sees himself as a parasite on the ones that he may or may not love.
All right, next email from Michael. I'm always glad for a new episode of The Squanch, and I love your analysis. Thanks, Michael. Autoerotic Assimilation is one of my favorite episodes of Rick and Morty. I felt you missed an opportunity to discuss the parallel between the A and the B plot. The A plot, of course, focused on Rick's relationship with an entity that was trying to take over everyone, not through domination, but by literally assimilating them into a hive mind. They don't do this as the Borg do by putting weird stuff on them, but by taking over their minds. And the B plot is about Beth and Jerry and starts with Jerry asking what hold Rick has over Beth. The two plots are similar. Rick influences those around him in a similar way by taking over their mind in a way. He has a corrupting influence that negatively affects people, and he manipulates people, all while being about quote-unquote individuality. it is that influence that eventually makes things worse for Unity, breaking everyone down and sowing the disorder onto the planet, much like he sows disorder in the lives of his family. Even when the people are free from Unity's control, they don't have individuality. They're corrupted by the belief that a certain type of nipples puts them in one group or another, and that they're superior because they belong to that group. And he goes on, but maybe that's too deep of a dive, he says. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to all the Wisecast, and when I'm done with graduate school, I'm going to become a patron. That's so cool, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I think that he said it in a much more eloquent way than what I meant. Basically, what I just said is that just as he, he has a horrible effect on Unity, he similarly has a similar effect on Beth. But I think, yeah, he put it in a much more eloquent manner.
Well,
I just want to
go on.
Real quickly, just like when people say, or when people are asking how the A and B plot ties together, I just feel like Jared is influencing them in a way that maybe could be compared to a hive mind, but that's really cool.
Speaking of which, there's only an A plot in this episode. There's no B plot, interestingly enough.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there are a lot of. I don't think there are a lot of episodes like that.
Well, it's because it kind of has that weird structure, kind of like almost interdimensional cable, where it's just a whole bunch of vignettes and that add up to something.
But even interdimensional cable in both cases have B plots in both episodes.
Oh well, I don't know what I'm talking about.
But does Morty's Mindbender have a B plot?
I don't remember one.
I don't.
He's just in that chair the whole time.
Yeah, I think it might not. What is Summer doing? She's not. She's only at the beginning and the end, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's the other one then.
Yeah, because back to the point a minute ago, I think Unity, the quote was at the end of the episode that she said that, it's less that he brings out the worst in people and more like that he rubs off on people after long enough, kind of like Unity does, and that people kind of take on traits like Rick, including Beth, including Unity herself. And so that's what she was trying to run away from, is that I love you, but I don't want to be like you.
And we can see in season 3 that Beth similarly takes on things like Rick, like being a sociopath in episode 9. All right, cool, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for listening. We're going to be back soon with season 2, episode 5, is it? Are we getting that far down? That's right, season 2, episode 5. I want to remind you guys, if you want to hear more content, check us out at wisecrackplus.com. It's our Patreon page. And please, if you have time, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us out, and it would mean the world to us. But where can we find you guys on the internet, Ryan?
You can find me at my weekly comedy shorts page called Ryan Shorts and Ryan's Game Show. Going to have some new episodes of both coming out soon.
Cool. And Alec?
I'm at Wisecrack Alec on Twitter, and I haven't been on Twitter for 10 years, so I'm pretty sure there's nothing that someone could dig up on me.
Delete that shit. There's nothing good there.
Yep. I've only got pictures of dogs on my Instagram, which is at Father of Woody, and in case that becomes uncouth, I think I'm all right. But I think...
Well, you wouldn't take my suggestion to name that account Woody Lover, so I think you're okay.
Yep, thank God. All right, that's it for today, guys. Squanch y'all later.
Wubba-lubba-dub-dub from Hollywood, California, and we love you, Mr. Poopy Butthole!